Hey everybody, my name is Juanito and this is my Modular for the Masses channel, another video on that. It's been a long time, but there's something I need to show you how to build, which you very much should not build, that a lot of people ask about and is required for a lot of the projects on, projects that I build and projects that are on YouTube or forums and stuff like that. And that is, are you ready? A bipolar power supply. Do not build this. What you need for this project is two power supplies, wall warts. I'm going to be using 12 volt wall warts. That's what I totally recommend. Many Eurorack, for instance, uses positive and negative 12 volt power. That's a good standard. Your synthesizer or audio circuits will work better with bipolar power. You'll get more overhead in the sense that you'll get a higher peak-to-peak waveform out of them. With a 9 volt single side supply using a TL072 or 074 chip, you're not going to be able to get anything close to 9 volts peak-to-peak because of the limitations of the op-amp chips. With 12 volts positive and 12 volts negative, you can totally get 10 volts peak to peak, even higher if you like. And 10 volts peak to peak, by the way, is the standard Eurorack voltage of signals that it puts out. The higher voltage you go with synthesizer circuits, the better, because that increases the signal to noise ratio. So what you need, like I said before, was two power supplies. I'm going to use this wall wart power supply. I'm old. It is a 500 milliamp 12 volt power supply. 110 volt, 240 volt inputs. Super great power supply for what I'm going to be working with. The other one I'm going to be using is a 2000 milliamps, so a 2 amp 12 volt power supply that also runs off 100 volts to 240 volts. These are both switching power supplies. This is the kind you really need to get. Well, it's better to get this kind because unregulated power supplies, the power will fluctuate wildly between maybe 15 volts if it's a 12 volt supply, and if you draw a lot of current out of them, the voltage can sag to like 9 volts. These also being switching power supplies, when you make a mistake and you accidentally short the positive to the negative, or the positive to the ground, or the negative to the ground, these switching power supplies will gracefully shut themselves down. Nothing will catch on fire. Let's begin. When you're working with audio, your signals need to go up and down from a 0 volt level. A sine wave, a ramp, a square wave, or a house wave, which is so much fun. The reason this is because you have a speaker. I have a speaker right here. All speakers are driven by a waveform of some sort. Now, if you have 0 volts and they're all going like this, then the speaker is only moving in one direction. It's going out, 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 out. When you have a bipolar, waveform, it'll go out and in, out and in. Now, when you have a single supply, either the speaker will be biased to a halfway between the positive voltage and the ground voltage, like if it's a 9 volt battery, there will be 4.5 volts kind of going into the voice coil. That way the waveform can go up and down from there. Or if you're not plugging it into a speaker, there's other tricks as well I'm not going to get into, but if you're plugging it into something besides the speaker, it'll use a capacitor, like a 10 microfarad capacitor, to block the DC. The direct current cannot go through, it'll only let the alternating current go through. And capacitors like this are polarized, and there will be a resistor to ground to prevent there from being a pop when you plug something in. So anyway, your guitar pedals, your sort of cheap little, with a bipolar power supply, you don't need to bias, you don't need to have something, different going into the voice coil. You don't need to block the direct current from going into the rest of your circuit. You can just plug it straight in, usually putting a little 100 resistor in line just to protect the op amp and to keep stuff safe. Just a sanity resistor. Just a sanity resistor. Now, hopefully you know why you need a bipolar power supply. How do you get one, you may ask? The way I'm going to show you today, which you totally should not do, is to take two power supplies. You're going to use one of them to provide the positive half of the power, and one of them to provide the negative half of the power. Of course, all wall warts like this come with a positive and a negative wire, and we're going to use the positive wire from this one to be the positive of the resulting power. The negative, I'll draw a little, is going to go to the middle. The positive wire of this one is going to also go to the middle. This will become our ground. The negative one coming off of this is going to be the negative voltage. Now you have a bipolar power supply. Here's a TL072. This will go to plus, this will go to minus, and boom, you are ready to go. Alright, so here's the two power supplies I'm going to be using. This one is obviously DC. They all need to be DC. It is 12 volts, 500 milliamps. This one is 12 volts, 2.0 amps. Now, it's okay to use mismatched power supplies. If you choose to use mismatched power supplies, always use the more powerful one on the positive side. Oops, I drew a minus sign. So we're going to use the 2.0 amp supply to go plus. We're going to use the 500 milliamp power supply to go to the minus. They're both 12 volts. You could theoretically use different voltages for the positive and negative side of the power supply, but if you do that, then your waveform will, might theoretically clip more. Well, it definitely will clip faster in one direction, negative or positive, depending on which one you do. 12 volt power supplies are everywhere. Just get yourself a 12 volt power supply. There's a lot of circuits that only use the positive power, positive and ground. Chips will go between there. If you are using a logic circuit like an Arduino or a lower voltage chip like a PT2399, you're going to have a power regulator, a voltage regulator in there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our two power supplies and we're going to cut bam. Then we're going to strip. This one looks like this is the 2 amp one right here. This one must be the 500 milliamp one. So the conductors in here will be a lot lower. Oh no, they're the same. Cool. Alright, now it's time to test these power supplies. So I'm going to keep these separated from each other so we don't have any surprise shorts, and I'm going to plug this into my thing over there. Okay, the light went on. Wow, it's really dim. It's okay. This is my digital multimeter. I'm going to unplug it while I'm messing with this. Alright, when I plug it in, it should say close to 0 volts. Whoa. Oh, it's bleeding down from whatever it was before. Okay, so now I'm plugging it in. Yay! 12.49 volts. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I unplugged it. I'm going to set it aside. This is the 500 milliamp power supply. This one will be providing the negative power. My wire's not long enough to reach. It's going to be off center. There goes my production values. Fancy. 11.98 volts. Perfect, perfect. Make really, really sure you're aware of which wire is positive and which wire is negative. Alright, so we're going to take the positive from the smaller one, which of course is the red wire, and we're going to take the negative from the more powerful one. And we're going to connect them together. Now make sure by visually inspecting both power supplies that they're disconnected. And right now, as you can see with your eyeballs, they're disconnected. So this point right here is your new ground. That is your 0 volts, your stable ground. Alright, now we have a really, really nice tinned. Let's go ahead and tin the other two as well. Just make them easier to work with. Next, take some electrical tape. And separate these three. We're separating the 3 conductors. These are the 3 parts, positive, ground, negative, of this bipolar power supply. When you've finished, get an extension cord, not plugged into anything, and plug in the 2 power supplies. And now you're going to follow me outside. Here's my project. 2 power supplies connected to the same extension cord. Make sure all 3 rails, the positive, the ground, and the negative, are totally isolated from each other. Tape them apart to keep them separate so they're not touching. I'm going to take the end of the extension cord and I'm going to plug it in, and we'll watch our contraption to see if it lights on fire. This is why we're doing it outside, because this is completely not recommended. The CE, whatever that stands for, and the whatever the United States version of that is, they would not approve of this kind of power supply. So, don't do this if you're planning on selling your synthesizer to anybody. Watch it. Nope. No explosion. Let's watch it for a little while. Doesn't seem to be heating up. No problems. You can see the light on the bigger power supply. think we've got success. Now that we put it on concrete and plugged it in for the first time, and it's not exploding or melting, we can feel confident that we can bring it inside and start running some tests. Now I've got my project, my dual power supply, plugged into a power strip over there, and I will turn it on. Yep, we're looking okay. Turn it off so I can safely remove the electrical tape. And then let's check the voltages. The middle wire is going to be ground. The red wire right here will be our positive rail, and this black wire will be our negative rail. I'm going to turn it on. This should be positive 12 volts, or 12 and a half. Sure enough, this should be negative 12, or 11.98. That is great. Those are excellent values. If we connect the positive probe to the positive rail and connect the negative probe to the negative rail, we get 24.45 volts. That is exactly what we're looking for. Super great. Alright, here's the power supply. Here is an Atari Punk console 1.5. It's got 2 secondary oscillators and 1 primary oscillator. And this is a module called the Temple, which basically is a filter. I've connected the ground, which in my wiring system is always brown. I connected the ground of both, to the ground coming off of my power supply. Obviously, when you do this in your own modular, you need to make sure that the insulation isn't just going to fall off. Orange is always positive. That's connected to the positive, and green is always negative. Green is connected to the black, which is the negative power there. So I have an aux cable, which I'm going to use to patch the Atari Punk console out to the in of the other module, and then I'm just going to plug in my headphones. Oh, this is so crowded. I'm going to plug in my headphones as a speaker, although I'm not sure it can really power a speaker. We will see. This is a big mess, so make sure the power wires aren't touching anything they shouldn't touch. And let's try it, see what happens. There we go. That's so quiet. I'm going to put the microphone right by the speaker. So there we have it, a bipolar power supply that you can build out of stuff you buy at a garage sale. And let's see how loud this is. Oh yeah, that probably works pretty good. So thanks for watching. Build it yourself. Don't though, because it's dangerous, and the CE and whatever equivalent agency in the United States would totally not approve. Thanks for watching.